Welcome to the Manor Club Extra, where we're going to be bringing you 6 digital shows across the next 6 months. This is going to bring us across all of Oxfordshire, bringing everyone together while we can't actually get into the room at the Cowley Workers Sports and Social Club. And we'll have interviews with past players, as well as bring in physical activities. And everyone here at Oxford United in the community would like to thank the hard work from Age UK Oxfordshire and Active Oxfordshire to make this possible.
So James, you're one of the patrons of Oxford United in the community. How did that come about and what does the role mean to you?
Yeah, I got a call and asked if something I'd be interested in, and for me to be offered an opportunity like that is a huge honour to me and to be part of something that is obviously making a real difference. So I was delighted to be given the opportunity and obviously happy that I can play some sort of part in it and give something back, really. And
a football club is important to its community. I guess that's part of what the role will entail, just getting the club out into the community.
It's a huge part of any football club. Like, I think they're the sort of lifeblood of any football club, the community, and they do so much for the club and say as just obviously as fans as well. They make a huge difference. So for me as a player to sort of come back and be able to sort of engage with those people that came and sort of cheered us on is great. And obviously as a player, sometimes you don't always get the opportunity to have that personal relationship. So for me to come back and spend time and be able to do things is great, and say a huge honour to be given the opportunity to do that.
And your own route into professional football, perhaps not the smoothest or easiest route. Tell us how your career led up to joining Oxford United.
Yeah, for me, sort of playing, I always wanted to be a professional footballer. I think from a young age, that's every sort of young lad's dream is to play professional football. But I say at sort of the age of 21, when I sort of left Chippenham Town, which for me, I absolutely loved playing for them, and I set up my coaching business and I was doing a bit of coaching, but I always sort of really had that hunger to be a professional footballer. But at 21, you sort of think maybe you've missed the boat, and especially now you see kids at 7, 6 even, being picked up by academies. It's a long process to get them into professional football. So I think for me, it was always something in the back of my mind that was sort of maybe I'd missed that opportunity, and I was just really enjoying playing for Chippenham. And then we played Merthyr Tydfil, a league game for Chippenham, and I think they were playing Walsall had Merthyr in the FA Cup, and I say a touch of fate really. Paul Merson and a few of the staff came down to watch the game, and I think on the night I scored a couple of goals and didn't really think too much of it, but sort of got a call from the manager the next day saying that they want you to go up there on loan and up on trial, originally. And I didn't believe him, to be honest. I put the phone down and just thought like he's pulling my leg, which he'd normally do. So, but he called straight back and said, look, he's serious. He wants you to go sort of almost today, go up there, spend a week up there, train, and try and fight for an opportunity to be a professional footballer. And for me, I was nervous, like to go in from the level I'd been playing to go and be sort of training with Mark Kinsella, Steve Staunton, Paul Merson, who was joining in still every day, was a massive opportunity. And like I say, as soon as I got there, I realised this is where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing.
Did you think you'd made it then, or did you know that there was more hard work and more bumps in the road to come?
Yeah, obviously I was on trial for a week, and then I spent sort of the week up there, and then I had to come back and play for Chippenham on the weekend, which was strange because I started getting used to being where I was, and I'd obviously enjoyed it, and then came back and had to play for Chippenham on the weekend. And then I think the following week I was at Bristol City for a week with Gary Johnson, and again, unbelievable experience. A bit more local for me because I grew up in that area, so I knew the team and the players. So it was a little bit different because obviously the local press and everything picked up on it a little bit more, and it was a sort of bigger deal. And I remember the manager at Chippenham had spoke to Kenny Jackett about going down to Swansea the week after that, and then obviously Swindon came up sort of last minute and said, look, we'd like to take you on trial as well. So it just, in the space of a week playing for Chippenham and playing our normal league games, it had blown up into, like I say, there was 4 or 5 teams sort of chasing me, and they all wanted me to come on trial. And for me, it was just a dream come true, really. I felt like I was at a point now where I'd been given that opportunity, and it was over to me to sort of go and grasp it with 2 hands and make sure I did the best I could to get an opportunity.
I think a lot of Oxford fans will know you perhaps initially from your time at Kidderminster. You sort of established yourself there. Is that where you felt comfortable initially, say before Oxford United? Was Kidderminster a good proving ground? Yeah,
Walsall was a difficult time. I think I'd gone there, and the step up was a huge step from Southern Premier to League One football, and I managed to get a couple of opportunities. And I think Matty Fryatt got injured on Boxing Day, and I came on at Blackpool and scored 2. And I think that night I'd sort of realised that this is what I want to do. Like, I don't want to be sat on the bench. I don't want to be coming on for 5-10 minutes. I'd obviously, throughout my career as a young age, I'd played 90 minutes and I played week in, week out. And then from that signing, the sort of euphoria of getting that opportunity to play league football, but then going backwards a little bit and not playing and coming on for 5 minutes here and there. And I just wanted to play football. And I say I'd really enjoyed my time at Walsall, but then Kidderminster came in and gave me the opportunity to go and play and get back to doing what I knew I could do, which is score goals and hopefully help the team. So I was over the moon to get that opportunity. But yeah, like I say, that was my sort of realisation that I wanted to be at a team where I was playing week in, week out, rather than collecting my money and sitting on the bench. I wanted to be out there and making the most of the career that had already been shortened by the age that I'd signed professionally. So I needed to make sure that I was playing week in, week out.
Now, obviously, Shrewsbury came in between Kidderminster and your eventual move to Oxford United. But how did the move to Oxford United come about? Was it out of the blue, or was it a protracted sort of toing and froing? Yeah,
I only joined Shrewsbury in the January, so I was sort of new really to the club, and I was just get my fitness to a level that needed to be to play at that level. And I'd enjoyed it. Like, I just felt like I'd just started to sort of get used to the way they were set up, like completely different to what it was like at Kidderminster. So I felt like I was just getting used to that, and obviously, unfortunately, the season sort of came to an end, and I went away. Probably worked, I'd say there's different, but arguably the hardest I'd worked throughout my sort of career. I knew it was a huge opportunity that I'd sort of been in the Football League, back to conference, back to the Football League. So I was desperate to stay there. I'd obviously done it at clubs I'd been at, and I'd proved that I could score goals. So that's what I wanted to do. And I remember coming back the first day, and there was sort of whispers of new players coming, and I remember sort of sat there, and then Grant Holt and Richard Walker sort of walked in and sat down. And obviously, being a forward, I knew both of those players, and I knew how sort of prolific they'd been at Bristol Rovers and obviously Nottingham Forest. So for me, instantly, again, your sort of heart sinks and thinks, right, this is going to be tough to get a starting place with these two guys here. So I think it was a few days later, Paul Simpson took charge, and he called me in and just said, look, you're going to be limited chances wise. Again, you're welcome to stay and fight it out, but for you're probably going to be third, fourth choice striker. And at your age, is that something you want to do, or do you want to go out and play? So I think he had still a good relationships with Oxford from his time as playing here. So I think he spoke to Darren Patterson, and it had almost been sorted without. I hadn't had sort of no prior knowledge to this, but it felt like this conversation had been going on before. I obviously found out, so it had been basically arranged to go and meet them. So come down and met Darren in Oxford, and he didn't really have to sell the club to me, to be honest. I'd obviously played against him at Kidderminster, and I knew a lot about the club and what they were like, and the ground and the players they had there. So he didn't need to sell it too much. As soon as I knew there was an opportunity to come in on loan, and it wasn't sort of for a month or two, but it was going to be for the whole season. So for me, it was great to be given that opportunity, and I knew it was going to mean sort of first team football and back playing and not being sort of sat on the bench for the coming season. So for me, it was a no-brainer, and I was over the moon to be given the opportunity.
Now, I might be wrong here, and I might be dropping you in it, but were you not sent off for Kidderminster against Oxford? Was it an elbow on James Clark? Yeah, I remember the game. Obviously, I knew some of the players, and in the game itself, like I remember, I think it was a draw in the end, but we weren't particularly playing well, and I remember just running, looking, and I remember running like as if I was running through onto a through ball, and next minute I just almost felt like I hit a brick wall, and it was Clark. Obviously they had tried to play offside, or he had just stopped his run completely, and I just ran straight into him. And he ended up getting sent off, and I was in the office at the end of the game we had Mark Yates at the time, our manager at Kidderminster, and a few of the guys from Oxford were in there, and we had the referees in there, and we watched back on the video, and they sort of slowed it down and showed, and they were like, oh, this is fine, like we're putting our report that you ran into him, blah, blah, blah.
that I was happy with that. I left it at that. Next minute, I got the letter saying it's been rejected. You've got a 3-game ban. And so for me, it was disappointing to obviously miss any game of football. But we, as soon as I signed, I remember sort of having a word with Clarkey, telling him that he got me sent off that day, and I wasn't very happy. But he was only a young lad then, and like I say, it was great to come back in and sort of catch up with them again.
And did you hit the ground running at Oxford? Did you feel like this was home for, you felt welcome there? Or did it take you a while to sort of hit your stride up?
Yeah, I think when I first came in, obviously we signed Jamie Guy, and I remember that there was a lot of whispers about sort of other players coming in, and for me it was a little bit sort of under the radar. I'd come in and I don't remember, say, social media as such wasn't such a big thing then, so I don't remember getting sort of messages. And I think when the press would come to the training ground, they would want to speak to Jamie Guy, and I think he'd come in from Colchester, and he was sort of the big name coming in. So for me, it was quite nice. I managed to sort of come under the radar a little bit, and we had a decent pre-season and managed to get off running with a few goals. And I think the start of the season, I didn't start particularly well. Like, I didn't score for, I think, 4 or 5 games, and there was pressure building because it's a big club. Like, the fans and how they were through my time here, they demand sort of success, and they want a player to work hard and do well. So we weren't sort of really doing that, and the pressure was obviously on Darren and the team, and it ended obviously with him leaving just before Christmas. But it just, for me, it was nice in a way coming in without that pressure of, we've signed this guy and he's going to score 30 goals a season. It was nice for me to just sort of come in and go about my work and get hopefully up and running with goals, which was what I knew I could do, but it was over to me to go out and prove that.
Obviously now you've got a huge rapport with fans of Oxford United. Was there a moment where you suddenly realised, I've got something between me and the fans? Did you hear your name being chanted or your nickname being chanted? Yeah. Was there a specific moment, or did that just come?
No, I think, again, I think the day I signed on loan, we went to Oxford City, and I managed to get a goal that day, and that was sort of my first sort of meeting with them, and I think that gave me an instant sort of feeling of what I could possibly go and do. And it was just nice. From when I've played against them, I knew that sort of level of how passionate they are, and the amount of numbers they used to get for the games. I remember coming here with sort of Kidderminster, and the amount of people that were turning up for, like, say, for this level of football was just unbelievable. And then we go to Droylsden or all the other places you'd end up, and there'd be sort of man and his dog. Like, to then come to Oxford was always a huge game. So to be part of that and that be your home crowd was phenomenal. And like I say, for me to be part of that, and as soon as I started scoring goals, the sort of more that came. And then, like I say, obviously when Darren left, unfortunately, Chris came in, and I think almost from that minute, like, there was just a complete shift in the football club and the way it was going, and things sort of overnight completely changed.
Talk us through your relationship with Chris Wilder. Always plain sailing, or up and down?
No, not really. Towards the end, it wasn't like that. Obviously, when he first came in, it was phenomenal. I'd never had that relationship with a manager, in terms of, he believed in everything that he was doing. He was desperate for me to sign permanently, and like I say, I was only 4 or 5 months into my loan period, and I knew sort of I had another year or 2 at Shrewsbury, so I had that. But obviously, on the other hand, I absolutely loved being at Oxford, and we sort of spoke about it, and he was like, look, I want you to be the focal point. I want to build a team around you. And for me, I'd never heard that. I'd never had that sort of relationship with a manager that give you that much belief and trust in you, really. So for me, I'd said straight away I'd love to stay permanently. I hadn't had the best of times at sort of Shrewsbury. They had come out and quite publicly sort of slated me, saying that I think I had tweeted, like, one of my sort of early tweets saying I'm happy to have signed for Oxford, and it'd all been sorted. And then, like I say, they came out and basically sort of hung me out to dry a little bit in the press, and said, like, I don't know what I was talking about, and I was a little boy and things like this, which I'd known I'd signed the contract. So it was a little bit naive on their part to do that, because, like I say, the deal had been done, and I had joined Oxford. So probably naive to tweet it so early, and the club should have probably been able to have the opportunity to do it. But I was just over the moon to be signing for Oxford and it be my permanent home as something. As the season went on, I felt that this was the place I wanted to spend, not just that season or the season after, the rest of my career.
did things get a bit trickier between you, the club, Wilder, perhaps even the fans, when interest came in from the neighbours, from Swindon and other clubs? What sort of happened around that period?
Yeah, that was probably the toughest time, say arguably in my career. It was obviously for me on a personal level, it was something that was sort of a no-go. It never crossed my mind to leave, not just for Swindon, but obviously Bournemouth came in, and I spoke to Bournemouth, and I remember speaking to Bristol Rovers, Mark McGee there, and I think they had made offers as well. So all these clubs that I'd turned down and that were obviously playing at a higher level, this for me, Swindon Town was just it was never gonna take off. So I made that pretty clear. I think they'd had 2 or 3 offers before that rejected, and then like I say, I just came in as normal, thinking that was the end of it. And then obviously I came in early, and they were like, "Look, we've accepted an offer," and I was like, obviously said to Chris, like, it's going to be a difficult one because it's going to look bad because I'm not even going to. I don't want to speak to him. I don't want to even consider it. So from your point of view, I understand. Like, it's obviously a decent amount of money, and from that side, but obviously it's never going to come off. So it could be £1 million. It's not going to happen. So it's something that I think for all parties, it's best if it just gets rejected and then we move on. But they were sort of keen to pursue it and see sort of how it panned out. So I was told to sort of go home or go to Swindon and speak with them. But I came out of the training ground. At the time, when I came out of the meeting with Chris, I was more disappointed that I was missing training. I felt like I was sort of not being with the lads, and which is what I wanted to do. Obviously, I was captain at the time, so I felt like I was sort of letting them down, not being able to train and not being able to prepare for our game. So I remember coming out, getting in my car and driving home, and just getting in and locking the door. And between obviously leaving Oxford, driving the 420 back to Wootton Bassett, it had just gone mental, and my phone was going non-stop, and I was getting a lot of stick from everywhere: Swindon fans, Oxford fans, people from other clubs, national press, just saying like he's turning his back on the club and all this, which to me I knew was never going to happen. But I remember speaking to Calvin and just saying, look, can I put something out there? I'm getting abused and getting a lot of stick, and for me, I just wanted to clear it up that it wasn't something I was considering. I didn't want to be leaving Oxford United. So, but I remember at the time I was told I couldn't tweet anything, I couldn't sort of speak to anyone just yet. I had to sort of sit tight. So I sat for the next sort of 2-3 hours receiving abuse from left, right and centre, and in the end I just tweeted, I just said like, that enough's enough. Like my family were getting brought into it, and my wife, and I was just like, I wasn't willing to put up with it. So I just tweeted that I wasn't going anywhere. As far as I'm concerned, I'm staying at Oxford, and I've got obviously years left on my contract, and that was that. So I remember getting a call then from Calvin and Chris saying, look, they've overturned the decision, you're not going to go. And it was just difficult because I remember coming in the next day, and Chris was like, look, we just carry on as normal really where we were. But obviously in that meeting I was told that I wasn't going to play for the club again, and if I didn't leave, and that my opportunities going forward were going to be limited because they're looking to go in a different direction, and there's going to be players coming in. So for me, it was a club I absolutely loved and never wanted to leave. All of a sudden, I was told that even if I didn't go, I might not play when I came back. So it was a bit of an unknown. Like, I came in back not knowing, like, obviously the lads were great. They obviously happy that I'd stayed, but I felt from then on always that the staff had probably a different sort of image of me from where I was before. They were obviously, for whatever reason, keen to sort of make the move happen, whether it was financial or what. I just, still to this day, I don't really know what the benefits would have been. Obviously, I know financially for the club, but for me as a player to leave the club that I love to then go to your biggest rivals in the same league just didn't sort of make sense. But like I say, I met Chris at the reunion just before the sort of pandemic, and it was great. Like I say, it was like old times. It went back to our relationship, how we had when I first came to the club, and he was offering me the opportunity to go up there if I needed anything to do with my UEFA B. Like he said, like, you can come in, and it was great. Like I say, it was like back how it was before the sort of the whole transfer thing, and it was great to obviously catch up with the players from that sort of time as well. What
are your abiding memories of that time at Oxford United? You obviously spent a few seasons with the club. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the players, or do you remember scoring individual goals, or what stands out to you?
All of it. Like I say, I've got such good memories that even during the time of the sort of the transfer sagas and say obviously games where I've had to miss through suspensions and things like that, I've always had fond memories of it. It was such an amazing time for me but for my family. Obviously, I had my daughter was born and she came to like the game 9 days after being born, and it's just such a huge part of not just my career, my life, my family, and everybody used to come to the game. So it's something I always look back on, fond memories. But obviously, the big one, the Wembley, what it meant for the football club and what it meant for us as players is something that lived with me forever.
And the derbies, obviously, you've had mixed emotions. Got sent off very early and won. You've scored at the county ground. What do you remember of those big games?
The away game, I think just to build up to that and be reminded of how long it had been since we had won there, and obviously knowing that on a season based, just based on that season, it was a huge game. We needed to get a result. We needed 3 points, and the fact it was so early in the season as well is sort of heightened it. But like I say, the press, the build up, the messages of support before the game, and obviously getting to the ground and seeing the fans being sort of marched through into the terraces. It was just a great experience, and I think for us it was a huge game. But we were so determined not just to get the 3 points, but put on a performance that showed that we were the team that were in business, and we wanted to go out there and put a real marker down.
It seems that you played in teams or sides at Oxford United that had a real good togetherness, and I'm sure you've still got friends that stem from that time. Any particular close friends that you've built up during your time?
Yeah, to be fair, like you say, there's so many players even now that come in that might have only come in for a month or come in for 6 months. But anybody that came into the club, especially the time I was there, they go away and they all say the same thing. It's a huge football club, and they have fond memories of playing there, but just being part of that group and part of that sort of, it's just such an iconic place to be. And like I say, with Kreitz and Matt Green and Robbie Hall, like players that I played with, I just struck up sort of relationships with, and Asa, and when he came in and ended up, I met him obviously when I joined Shrewsbury, but then he joined up at Oxford as well, and he was my best man at my wedding. So you pick up these relationships, and like I say, they might only last 6 months a year, but they go on and be lifelong sort of friendships. So it's give you a sort of the opportunity to do that. And like I say, I've been to other football clubs where that's not the case. You play with players and then you leave and you might never speak to them again. And I say at Oxford, it definitely had a different feeling, and it was such a huge part of my career. Like I say, I look back on it with fond memories, and I made some incredible friends as well.
Officially, you're the club's second highest scorer. Unofficially, you could argue you are the top scorer. How important is that to you? Is that a nice thing to have, or was that a crucial thing for you, or does it not matter at all?
I think as a forward, it's always nice to score goals. That's what you're paid to do, but that's what you love doing. That's why you become a striker when you're a kid, or when you're in the garden or playing with your mates. You score goals. That's what you want to do. You take pride in what you're doing. So for me, it was something I always enjoyed doing, and I remember the first sort of couple of years, it wasn't sort of on my radar, and I think I scored 26, I think the first season, then 29, and in the second year, the year we got promoted, and then slowly you start sort of looking at it, and I remember I'd sort of sneaked into the sort of top 10 and top 8 and 6, and slowly it sort of progressed, and obviously the Chester game, the hat-trick that I scored that day and then got taken away. At the time, it didn't really seem as important. I just thought, I'll just go and score another 3, or I'll just go and score. But then as obviously the games, especially in my last year, I think probably I didn't play as many as I'd liked, and I came off the bench at Mansfield, I think around Christmas time, and scored. That was my 100th. But again, I was struggling to get in the team, whether that was a little bit of hangover from obviously mine and Chris's relationship. I think that probably that last 6 months was probably the toughest, because it had almost completely gone to a point where we didn't speak at all. Like obviously I was still getting picked, but I had no sort of dialogue with him, and we would sort of walk past each other in the corridors of the club, and it would be like we'd complete strangers, which was hard for me because of where we were when I first came, and then obviously it sort of started to be mended, and then it sort of, I don't know, it all just broke down again, and it was tough to sort of be playing week in, week out and playing, and when I knew I might play a game and I might be dropped for 2 or 3 games. So it's hard to get that consistency. And I'd say that those last sort of goals, ticking them off, was getting tougher and tougher. And I remember, getting down to sort of 1 off, and then the season finished, and then obviously finding out that they were going to offer me a year sort of going forward, and I think it was something like a 35% pay cut on what I was on. And at the time, it was just such a sort of heartbreaking decision to then. I'd had my daughter in the August of that year, so she was sort of 7-8 months old, and all of a sudden it wasn't a selfish decision. I could probably make do with less money and the travel, and I had to look after my family now and make sure my daughter was going to be all right. So it put me in a tricky situation, and like I say, it's something that I look back on, and I spent sort of many hours sort of thinking of what I could do or how I could make it work without sort of impacting them. And in the end, it felt like it just wasn't fair. So I had to make that decision. And like I say, one of the hardest in my career to sort of walk away from a club that was everything to me and sort of start a new career down on the South Coast.
Did you leave Oxford with any regrets, and did you leave the Football League potentially too early? You went to Eastleigh. Do you look back and think you could have played at a high level for longer? Yeah, again, it's something that now sort of turning 35. I spoke to my wife recently about it, and obviously if you could look through the sort of crystal ball and look back on it and see where that was going to pan out, then obviously I probably would have stayed and fought it out. And like I say, hopefully it's stayed and still be doing sort of a James Mackey now and still playing now. And obviously you have to deal with those sort of issues through your career, but it's only when you probably get a bit older you start sort of analysing it a bit more. And at the time it felt like that was the only option, but then obviously as you get older and you look back and you think like it probably wasn't the right decision, and I would have loved to have stayed at Oxford and obviously gone on and broke the record and hopefully stayed a few more years. But at the time, like I say, it was a decision I made, and we've had a fantastic time living down near Bournemouth and enjoying that part of the world. But on a sort of playing level and on a football career, then like probably was the wrong decision to leave, and I would love to have stayed. What's football taught you about life?
A lot. In terms of how short a sort of career it is, it makes you sort of look at things completely differently in terms of it's over so quick. I remember sort of starting out at 21 and thinking I had so much time and stuff like that. So a message that I've took sort of forward to sort of younger players I've played with is always prepare for sort of the future, what ifs. And I've been pretty fortunate at 35 to have had very few injuries. I had a double hernia, that's about it, and a broken sort of bone in my foot. But other than that, I've played throughout my career without sort of too many injuries. So for players sort of coming through now and picking up injuries, has always been plan for the future. Like your career could end in 2 minutes, and obviously the PFA have sort of started to pick up that message, and they're pushing sort of the courses and things like that. But there's still so much more to do and awareness to raise for sort of young players that this is a great industry to be in, and it's amazing, but it can change in a sort of a blink of an eye. So always make sure that you've got something prepared and you're ready for what you're going to be doing after you finish football, really.
And you're at Banbury now. Tell us about what you're doing at Banbury and how that came about.
Yeah, I signed in May as an assistant manager player. Playing was still my ultimate sort of aim and dream is to carry on playing as long as I can. I remember I spoke to Tom Newey in the summer and said sort of I'd left Hungerford and that I wanted to continue playing, and I think he'd found that transition tricky, and it's not an easy thing to do coming out of football, and that's all you've known to then sort of having to look at what you're going to do next. And I still think, like I say, I mentioned the PFA, I still think there's a lot to do, especially for sort of lower level players and players that sort of naturally you drop down the levels, so you sort of come out of their area that they probably look at, although you're a member for life, in terms of players that are then playing in the Conference South and Southern Premier League. And as you come down the levels, you're sort of almost a little bit forgotten. And I think there still needs to be more done for players that are coming out of the game at those levels. And just to safeguard anything that can come from it, because it is, for me, it's been a tricky probably 2 years to where I am to where I was, and sort of getting your head around that change and that transition. So it is tricky, and like I say, they are doing more, but I think there still needs to be a lot more sort of for the players that are coming out of the game.
Is there a slight feeling that you as a player feel a bit forgotten? You might leave a group chat from a team that you were with. You're no longer in their headlights and you know in the headlines and things like that. Do you feel sometimes a little bit forgotten as soon as you hang up your professional boots?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a big part of it, and I think if you speak to sort of players in previous generations that played, and probably the social media side of it wasn't even thought of back then, so it was different. The cultures were different, but obviously nowadays, especially, you're in sort of group chats and you're sort of friends on Twitter and Facebook, and then as soon as you leave that, especially a professional game, you're obviously together 5-6 days a week. To then go in sort of part-time, your 2 evenings, and obviously the players that you're playing with in the evening are then working during the day, and so it's a completely different dynamic. But obviously it is very different, and like I say, something you sort of struggle with, especially when you leave full-time football. You've got that relationship day in, day out. If you've got problems, there's always someone there. You go from that, and almost overnight, you're not in as often, you don't see him as often, so it is difficult to sort of replicate that environment. But yeah, it's something I especially found sort of difficult to sort of start with, and something you learn to sort of make friends, different friends outside of the industry. Like I say, I'm working with a mate at the minute that owns a sort of aluminium window and door fitting company, and I'm out working with him sort of during the day. So again, they're different relationships that when I was playing, I probably didn't speak to as much because I was focusing on the group that I was with. So then all of a sudden I'm training and I'm speaking with Wingy and other management staff during the day about what we're doing, but also then you've got other friends that you probably didn't necessarily speak to as much when you're playing. So it's different, but like I say, it's something you've just got to get used to, and that's going forward will be sort of the future of how it will be.
When you were growing up and playing youth football and trying to make your way in the game, did you have strong support from your family? Did you have parents coming to watch, grandparents coming to watch, or did you have to sort of do it alone?
No, they've like I say, they're the reason I am where I am today, really. They gave up basically everything for me to be able to live my dream, and if that meant sort of missing work or missing family birthdays. I've got 2 brothers that probably equally sort of missed out on things because they were always with me, taking me everywhere and taking me to games. And they both played when we were younger. We all played, like me and my older brother played in the same team, but then, like I say, sort of academics and stuff, they took that route, and my younger brother went into insurance, so he took that route, and for me it was sport. That's what my dream was. So like I say, without them, like I say, I 100% wouldn't be where I am today, and I sort of remind them of that pretty often, that they gave me the opportunity to do what I did. And like I say, obviously my brothers as well, they sort of sacrificed, and they got not neglected, but they didn't probably get the same time with mum and dad that they probably would have liked, because they were shipping me all over the country to play, and college trials and England school trials. Like it was never ending. But for me, it was, like say, a dream come true to be doing that day in, day out.
And you started a family of your own while you were at Oxford United, but it hasn't always been the smoothest of rides. How did you balance football and family life?
It's tricky. Yeah, it's like I say, when I was younger, it's not something you sort of consider. And then as you get older, like players I played with at Oxford, they obviously had kids. Jake Wright had 2, and you've seen sort of his boys come to the training ground and, like say, kicking balls around, and that's what you sort of just imagine it would be like. But then obviously I had my eldest now, and she was a girl, and like I say, she runs around and kicks a ball now. But at the time, it wasn't something as she grew up, she'd watch me if I was on TV, but she's not interested really in watching it if it's on and I'm watching it. So I'm taking her to dance classes and gymnastics, and completely not what you imagined when growing up. You just think, like I say, I'd have a couple of boys, they'd play football, I'd go and get them into football teams. It just, like I say, it hasn't really panned out like that. And then obviously playing sort of full-time still at Eastleigh, and then I had my second daughter who was born effectively blind, so it completely sort of tipped our lives upside down, really. And that was my sort of where my full-time football, I decided that was the end of that. I couldn't commit to full-time football, but then obviously being back and forth to London and all the travel that was involved in getting to and from the hospital just wasn't going to be achievable. So, but also I think in that minute, like, football took a back seat anyway, and I was keen to make sure she was all right rather than prolong my career. It was all about her and what she needed, really.
And if they later down the line wanted to go into football in some capacity, would you say, yeah, football's a great industry, or would you warn them against it?
Oh, definitely. Like I say, it's given me an unbelievable life. Looking back, there's certain things I might change like a little bit, but in terms of that as a whole, I've loved every minute. And if she wanted to do that, then great. If she wanted to be a dart, whatever she wanted to do, I'd 100% support her. I might sort of give her a little bit of guidance on where to sort of do with her money and things like that. And to obviously with schooling, I still think it's a huge part of football. If we can sort of educate players as well as let them train and do all that side of it, it could be sort of like the perfect sort of marriage, really, is that education as well as doing what you're doing day in, day out, because you still have a lot of free time. I think by sort of 1 or 2 o'clock, we were on the way home from training, and you got sort of Wednesdays off. You're in hotels Friday night. You get loads of time on the team bus. There's a lot of time. Again, something I've looked back on later in life is a lot of wasted time that you could be learning trades, or you could be taking courses, or whatever you needed to do, or whatever your sort of outside passion from football is. That would be something that I would be asking her to look into and make sure that she had something to fall back on.
You played with some interesting players at Oxford, Dave Kitson, Michael Dewberry, in terms of people who've lived a life outside of football. Did any of them give you any advice that stuck with you?
No, I think Dubes, especially, I've said before, like he's one of the guys that I've played with different players, but that he's one that I think growing up, I knew of it. Like I'd seen him playing in Champions League, Premier League, at the top level, and I think when he came in at Oxford, everyone was thinking, what's this guy like? What's he doing at this level? Like, you just look at him and still in good shape, still could play. But I think you sort of learn quite quickly, like for me now at my age, that I see what he was like. Obviously, he was still desperate to play. His body's going through things that, like, as you get older, start happening. But he still had that passion, that desire. But as soon as you start speaking, everyone had listened. Like he demanded that respect, that everybody knew what he was talking about, what he was trying to get across. And like I say, it's the same with Kits, really. Like as soon as he spoke, and he spoke a lot of sense, but he didn't always. Kit's probably less so. He wouldn't always talk, but when he did, there was a point to it, and it was to get across his experiences of what he had been through, or what he believed would take us that next level. And obviously, as a forward, to spend some time with him, and he was a bit of a joker, but you still get a lot of sense out of him, and understanding of what it took to sort of go and get to the top level.
And you're on the managerial path now. You're doing your licenses. Do you look back at some of the managers you've played under? Are you gonna cherry pick some of the best bits and leave out some of the worst bits from some of those managers? Yeah,
I just recently we started looking at sessions to do, and I started doing a few finishing sessions with the forwards, and I've sort of recycled the ones that Chris did, and we had a pretty sort of set thing. The week was never always planned out in sort of paper form, but you knew what you were going to be doing throughout the week, and it made a difference. I think footballers are funny sort of creatures. We like that sort of routine. We like that knowing what's coming. You don't like too many sort of surprises along the way, and you get into a sort of routine that works. And especially, like I say, at Oxford, it just went thing to thing to thing, and it ended up, like I say, pushing us to that level that we wanted to get to. But it was nice to know week in, week out what you're going to be doing, and it made our jobs a little bit easier. So
is that what you're looking to give to the team that you're in charge of it with Wingy at Banbury?
Yeah, I think, like I say, that's one thing I've definitely taken, that sort of structure and that amount of planning. I think Chris and players that I've heard speak since, his sort of level of detail was the reason that we managed to go on and achieve what we did. And having spoke to players that played under him since, Northampton players and obviously Sheffield United, what he's gone and implemented there is exactly the same as what he was doing at sort of League Two level and the conference level. So it just shows you, like, with that sort of level of preparation and sort of work, because he would work non-stop to make sure that we were given everything we needed to go out and perform on a Saturday, in terms of knowing who we were playing, the players, that we'd get a pack on a Saturday about the team and every strength, every weakness, to make sure that when we were out there, we had no excuses. We couldn't come in and say, we didn't know they were going to do that. So he did all his hard work to make sure that there was no excuses from us that we could sort of throw back at him.
What kind of player were you? Were you an arm round? Did you need an arm around the shoulder, or did you need a rollicking every now and again?
Yeah, I think I was probably, like say, like a bit of an old school. Like you could shout and scream at me, and like say it would fire me up probably a little bit more. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. You've got to be a little bit more careful with certain players and younger players, especially. I'm a bit more probably of a sort of arm round and like ask them if they're all right, and because I realised, like again, through your career, the players you play with, Scott Davies and that at Oxford, like had massive gambling problems going off the pitch, but at the time we were unaware of that. So we never saw the best of Scott Davies at Oxford United, but it's only later on in his career and in my career that you realise probably what he was going through at the time. You were never going to get the best out of him because of what was going on off the pitch. So you don't always realise what players are going through, and I think for me that's another thing that I've sort of taken, that everybody has their own sort of struggles and their own trials off the pitch. So although they're out there on a Saturday and they're wanting to play football, it might not always be a sort of smooth road, and it's always key to sort of check in on them and see how they are prior to sort of match days and make sure they're all right.
Do you think that's improved in football in your career? Have you seen more of that sort of pastoral care sort of outside and people checking in on what their players are up to away from the training ground?
Yeah, I think players are a lot more aware. I think that, again, the PFA and the sort of mental health side of football is sort of took the forefront recently. But again, I think there's still loads more that needs to be done. But it's a start. It gives players that freedom to sort of speak, and that taboo of like say that they're struggling or that they've had issues with clubs they've been at. They've probably been scared or thought they'd be sort of frowned upon if that was to sort of come out. So there's definitely sort of leeway now, and players have got the right avenues to report things, and if they're struggling with anything, they know they can do that. So it is definitely better, but there's still, again, more that probably needs to be done to let players know that it's not a sign of weakness if you're struggling, or just let someone know and things can be resolved. Because again, for Scott and players like that, obviously, when I was at Oxford, I was the captain, so I feel bad that we didn't know and we couldn't really sort of help him and give him guidance that possibly could have sort of prolonged his career and give him the opportunity to go on and continue playing. So yeah, you look back on things and think, like, if we had known, could we have made a difference? And so yeah, it's definitely something that's improved, but it's something that definitely needs to be increased, and they're doing a lot, and hopefully that continues.
Were you active with the PFA during your playing career? And I think you played with Ben Purkis, who is now quite high up, or was high up with the PFA. Could you always see that he was involved from an early age, or from an early stage? You could see that he'd go into that sort of administrative role. And what was your involvement with the PFA? Yeah,
we'd have once a season. We'd have like our sort of like at the start of the season, we'd meet with like the obviously the reps that would come around the clubs, and they would just sort of check in, really, just to see that everything was all right and there's no issues. And like I say, there was alleyways that if you needed to speak with someone or whatever, you were given that information at the start of the season, and that was it, sort of thing. It wasn't something that was probably, I'm sure now they've got sort of text message groups that if they've got any issues they can text. Back then it wasn't really sort of pushed to the forefront. So yeah, we had that, and like I say, we'd have our meetings, and Perks was like the club representative, so he would go to their like annual meetings and stuff, and go through, like, they would go through rule changes and bits and bobs, and then he would come back and relay it to the first team. So it was something that he was always interested in. And like I say, I other than sort of pension bits and bobs, you don't really have too much to do with the PFA. Like, they've done things for me and obviously my family with my daughter, and we had a lot of travel expenses and things which I've managed to be able to sort of recoup. But there's been a bit for sort of courses. They obviously pay for some of your courses, but it's not like an active. There's a lot of chasing. Like, for me, like, obviously I felt like I've had to chase that. I've had to book on courses, but I've had to chase the courses. I've had to then send the receipts in, then I've had to. So it's a lot. The onus is always on the player to make sure that you're doing all that, which I sort of understand, but not all players feel comfortable doing that. So I think that, again, probably a bit more in terms of going to the clubs and having individual meetings with players and maybe just seeing, because I think they'd probably discover a lot more issues that aren't said, that players still don't feel comfortable saying in front of a group. So There still needs to be more done, but for me, like I say, I didn't have huge amounts of dealings with the PFA, but with my pension, I got to 35 and I hadn't heard anything, and I rang them and I was like, I'm 35 and no one's talked me through my pension, my options. I had no clue what my options were. And they were like, oh, we've been sending this emails and the paperwork and everything to an address that I moved 9 years ago from. So they don't, like I say, there's a lot that needs still to be done in terms of, like I say, I had no clue what my pension was, what was in there, what I could do with it, how I could use it, but they'd been sending it to address with no correspondence for 9 years and not questioned that, or they knew what clubs I was at. They could have tracked you down and figured out if you're still living there. But again, there's just little things that for me, sort of, when I left professional football, left me with a bit of a sort of sour taste, really, that they're not really doing what, as a governing body, they should be doing for players and making sure they're all okay. So
does that sort of influence how you will treat the players at Banbury, and as your managerial career will develop? Do you think that will be at the forefront of your mind?
For me, like I say, it's paramount. I think for especially as you drop down the levels, this for them is sort of pocket money, a bit of fun, and being with their friends. I need to make sure that, for me, obviously as a player still, that these players are coming and they haven't got any issues, because the likelihood of having issues at this level are probably greater than being sort of in the Football League. So, and obviously on this UEFA B course, we've discovered that the sort of League Managers Association and what they do for Premier League and Football League managers and sort of players and stuff. But then as soon as you drop out of the Football League, they've got no sort of Managers Association for that level, and a lot of managers have got a lot of issues, but there's no one sort of helping them. And you think like that, the levels underneath the Football League, these are probably the levels that need the most sort of help and stuff, and there's absolutely nothing for them. So yeah, it's made you realise, say, it's there's definitely still a sort of big divide from like obviously the Football League and up into the sort of Championship and Premier League, to then once you come out of that, it's sort of almost like the trapdoor of non-leagues just left to almost sort of fend for yourself, really.
Where is your managerial career and the rest of your time in football going to take you in 20 years' time? Where's James Constable going to go?
Oh, tough question. I would like to think, say, in football, it's given me everything really in my life, and I look back on it and it's hard to remember a time without it, playing or, like I say, coaching when I was younger, and then obviously now to be beginning that transition out of playing. I'm hoping I've still got another 2 or 3 years playing, but for me it's going to be doing as much as I can now in terms of learning and coaching and getting my hands on and like I say, working with players and just seeing where that takes me. Back 10 years ago, I think when I started, it was a manager, an assistant and a kit man and a physio, that's it. Now you've got sort of, we were speaking earlier, like player liaison, and there's a lot more roles in football than there used to be. And obviously for me, it's trying to find what fits me best and what works. I say that side of sort of working with players and sort of safeguarding them for the future and something is something that really interests me because of me and where I've been, and obviously I've been pretty sensible throughout my career, but getting to sort of 35 and realising you haven't got that many qualifications, you're not fit for a lot of the jobs that are out there. A lot of sort of companies sort of don't really like employing ex-footballers because they think you're used to doing so many hours a day. There's a lot of sort of stigma that goes with being a professional footballer, and I think job-wise and getting players, I think at 34 I did my CV for the first time in my life, and a lot of players are doing that. A lot of people, are coming out of school at 16, 17 and doing it. So you're sort of playing catch-up on that. So again, there's lots of things that I would like to do, and I think, like I say, if it could be combined with looking after sort of the new players sort of coming through and giving them help and guidance, and that would be a great thing to sort of combine it with.
And you're managing at Banbury, which is in Oxfordshire, obviously. I mean, this area seems to have taken a bit of a hold on you, not just necessarily the football club. You've done lots of charity work within the community as well. What is it that's been a good relationship between the people of Oxfordshire and yourself?
I think just their passion, like you sort of, again, teams. I remember when I went to Shrewsbury and it was just in the middle of nowhere, and the fans are obviously passionate, but it's just a ground in the middle of nowhere. But here, it's embedded in the community, and Like I say, they do so much for the football club, and when you come back, there's still the same people selling 50-50 tickets and Sue Trafford and people like that that are outside the ground selling scarves, and they've been doing it since I've been here, and it just means so much to them. So to see their passion, it's impossible for it not to rub off on you. And like I say, for me to be back working in this area, and even just coming here today, you drive past obviously the ground and see it, just makes you smile instantly, and it's something that I love doing, and I love being back in this area, and I'm looking forward to hopefully moving this way and spending the next few years working and being back amongst the people that gave so much to me.
And we're here because the Manor Club can't happen during these weird times. You've done the Manor Club at the Cowley Workers Club. Tell us about that, and what was the experience like? Oh,
brilliant experience. Again, to work, to come in and obviously with Rosie have a conversation. It's always fun chatting with Rosie, but to do it there in front of all those sort of fans that come to the games, and give them like that personal conversation, like say it felt like just sat in your front room chatting. It didn't feel like a sort of an interview. We were just sat there talking, and it opened up the floor for them to ask questions, and there's loads of questions they wanted to know about me and relationships, and it's just about being honest and letting them sort of get into the mind of a footballer and understand what goes on, but also your personal life. They want to know like things about your life, where you are, and things like that, which is great for me. It's obviously I love doing that, and I love being able to chat with them and like I say, hopefully combat in that time that they would probably be maybe sat at home. It's nice to get them all together, and I say unfortunately with COVID we haven't been able to do that, but with this we're hopefully opening that different opportunity with the digital stuff to be able to continue that.
And it is a great way of combating loneliness. You know, it's a good initiative from the Community Trust. I'm sure you'd agree.
Yeah, it's fantastic because, like you say, those people that would have gone out on a Wednesday or whatever to come and listen and have some food and just catch up with their friends, they haven't been able to do. So obviously for that sort of generation as well, social media and sort of those things are quite scary sometimes. So to not have that as well is a sort of double whammy really, to not have the things they would normally do, and they can't just go out and meet their friends, but also the social media side of it is not something they might be able to access. So to be able to do this and get it into a format that they can sit and watch it, then hopefully we're making a difference, which is great for me and obviously for the charity and Oxford United in the community and Age UK and everybody. It's a win-win.
And hopefully, maybe next year, maybe next spring, we might be back to Manor Club. Would you come back and do an encore? Yeah,
I'd love to. Like I say, it's something I always enjoy doing and coming back to the area and catching up with the fans that come and 99% of the time cheered me on, give me a bit of stick every now and again, but you don't mind that. But yeah, to come back and give them something for what they did for me when I was at the club is great. And like I say, to see familiar faces and hopefully come February or March when we're sort of hopefully back to normal, we can do it all again.
So welcome to the class. Today we've got James and Roger, and we're going to do a class around strength and balance. Really important, everybody works at your own level, so if you find that you do need to take a break, then please do. Before you start any exercise like this, you need to make sure that the area around you is all clear so that you're not tripping over anything. Put the dogs out so you're not falling over the dog. Okay, are we ready? James, Roger? Yeah. Excellent, good. So hands onto the side of the chair. We're going to do a nice big hip walk, bringing ourselves forward in this chair so we can sit up nice and tall and use these tummy muscles to keep us nice and tall. Super. Just let your arms dangle by your side and then just take it into a nice little roll, gently rolling these shoulders backwards. Good. Making the circles a little bit bigger each time you roll. Good. And we're just going to do one more. Super. And then just place your hands down wherever they feel comfortable, and we'll take it into a little march through these legs. And we're doing a little warm-up, so we're aiming to get our joints and our muscles all nice and warm and ready to do the main part of the workout. Super. And 3, 2, 1. one, and just bring those feet down to a nice little halt. Good. So what I want you to think about when we sat in this chair, that we have nice width in our feet, which gives you nice stability in the chair, and same when we stand in, so we have nice width. Excellent. So off to the hands. So we're going to take the hands round, rotating the hands, so we're getting some loosening through those wrists. Excellent. And take it in the other direction. Brilliant. Good. And then let your hands come down, reaching down to either side, and we're just going to reach down to the right, back up to centre, down to the left. Super. And just one more to each side, reaching down, keeping your shoulders and your head looking forward. Excellent. Bring your hands to the front. Super. We're going to go to the legs. So start with the right leg. We're going to dig with the heel and tap with the toe. Stay with that leg, dig with the heel and tap with the toe. So this is getting the ankles loosened up, and this movement is the furthest that the ankle will move in a forwards and backwards direction. So tapping with the heel, tapping with the toe. Last one, tap with the heel, tap with the toe. Good. Stay with that same leg, pick up the leg and take the foot round in a nice big circle. Super. And in the other direction. Brilliant. And bring that foot in. Super. Going to the other one. So we're going to dig with the heel, tap with the toe. Lovely. Dig with the heel, tap with the toe. Excellent. And just one more. Dig with the heel, tap with the toe. Just place the heel down, have a little rest, and then pick up the foot again, round in a circle with that foot, loosening up through those stiff ankles. And in the other direction. That's brilliant. Lovely. Good. Feet down, nice and comfortable, nice width in your feet. That's it. Good. So we're going to stand up. We just need to take those heels back just a little tiny tad so that they're just way behind our knees a little bit. Lean forward, drive through those legs and stand yourselves up nice and tall. A little bit of a march through those feet so that when we first stand, we don't get dizzy. Sometimes when you bend down, you stand up a bit quick, you see those stars in front of you. Lovely. Just bring your feet to a nice little halt and then take yourself round towards the back of the chair. Excellent. Good. Width in your feet again, shoulders back and down, like you've got a big zip up the front, and we're going to roll those shoulders again, just for 3. So all the way forward and all the way back. Super. One more. All the way forward and all the way back. Good. So when we roll shoulders, we never roll them forward because we don't want the shoulders to come forward and make our posture a little bit incorrect. We want those shoulders to come back so we're standing nice and tall. Super. Little tiny march. Let the arms swing if you want to. Good. Excellent. Making sure you're getting the whole of the foot down to the floor when you march. Lovely. Head up looking forward. Excellent. Now take that little march. We're marching off to the right-hand side of the chair. Brilliant. Good. Keep the marching going if you can. Take a step forward with that right leg. Good. And as we step forward, we push back. Good. Step forward and push back. Try not to let the knee drift forward. And then thinking about balance and support, we start to put in a little stamp step so that if we find we wobble with our balance, you can stamp and bring yourself back up to that standing position. Good. And stamp and push. Good. And stamp and push. Last one. Stamp and push. Lovely. Standing nice and tall. Going to the other leg. The chair's there if you need it for a bit of support. And we're going to take a step forward first of all, just nice and gentle so we know where we're going, and push yourself back. Good. And step and push. Good. Don't let that knee drift forward. And then we're putting a little stamp step. Good. And stamp and push. And stamp and push. Good. Stamp and push. Fantastic. Stamp and push. Last one. Stamp and push. Good. Standing nice and tall, trying to keep those feet moving if you can. Excellent. Good. Brilliant. Just bring those feet to a nice little halt. We're going to do another roll through those shoulders so that we've got those shoulders back. So we're standing nice and tall. Fantastic. So we're going to do the opposite of what we've just done. So we're going to take a backward step. Take a backward step. Really important you get some width in your feet so you're not standing on a rail, on a tightrope and wobbling all over. So that you're standing nicely on that railway line and you've got that really strong posture going through your feet. Excellent. Take a step back. Stay with the same leg and push off. Good. And push off. Now, if you wanted to put some movement in with your arms, you can bring your arms forward. So you can pretend you've got a football, James. You've got a football in your hands. And just bring it to the front and look past that ball. Good. Excellent. Last one. Step and push. Bring your arms in. Nice little march through those feet. And we always go with balance, so we're doing the same thing on the other side. So step back. Make sure you've got that width and you're not wobbling. And push back in. Good. Bring those arms forward. So there. Pretend you've got hold of that football. Good. You could advance this movement by doing a little bounce with the ball when you get to the end. So you're bouncing it and catching it before you come back up. Good. Step and push. Good. Step and push. Last one. Step and push. Lovely. Bring those feet in. Nice little march. Super. Excellent. So the whole time we're thinking about balance, but we're also thinking about building up the strength in the muscles which will help the balance. Lovely. Bring your feet to a halt. Bring yourself round to the front of the chair. Feel that chair behind the backs of your legs. Now the next exercise, really, really important for building up strength in the legs and in the muscles in your butt, so that when you're walking up the stairs or you're walking up a hill, it's going to help the muscles build. So feel the backs of your chair with your legs. Now we're going to use our arms for a bit of balance and support as we go down, and then we're going to use them for power and momentum to bring ourselves back up again. So we're going to do one fairly slow and come back up. Excellent. So we're going to do 5. We're going to come down and power up. Good. Down, power up. Fantastic. Down. Good. 2 left, Roger. Good. Last one and power up. Brilliant. Little march through those feet. Fantastic. Good. Lovely. Bring your feet to a nice little halt and bring yourself round towards the back of the chair again. Good. This time we're going to take a step to the left side of the chair. Left side of the chair. So this one is really thinking about balance. So when we did the lunging step and we made sure we had that width in our feet, so when we step backwards and forwards, this time we're going to challenge the balance a little bit more. So you're going to bring the outside leg forward and bring the heel into the toes and stand nice and tall. Good. Stand nice and tall. And look forward. Remember, with anything to do with balance, it's really important you get your eyes looking forward. Super. And take that foot out to the side. Excellent. Good. And one more. We're going to bring it forward. And stand up nice and tall, standing on that tightrope, long way across that Grand Canyon. And then we're going to pick up this leg that's behind and just bring it round and pop that heel in front. Good. Excellent. Get yourself nice and tall. Get yourself steady with the equal amount of weight through both legs. And then pick up the front foot again and bring it round and back to standing. Super. Step yourself out. Excellent. Into a little march. Super. Bring yourself marching back behind the chair. Good. Excellent. Just get those arms swinging a little bit. Good. Putting a little bit of momentum now into this march. So driving those elbows. Good. Excellent. Another couple of seconds. Driving these elbows. Lovely. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And bring those arms down. Bring those feet down to a nice little march. Lovely. Take that little march. We're going over to this right-hand side of the chair again. Super. So if you can, you want this leg by the back leg of the chair, and so you can touch the chair with your hands for a little bit of support if you need to. So we're going to do like a single leg swing. So we're going to, with this outside leg, just take it back so you're on your toes first of all. Stand nice and tall. So in strength and balance, this is called a Flamingo Swing. But it's a little bit like you're doing your keep you uppies, James, with your football. So we're going to draw that knee through. Try and get the knee as high as you can and take it back. Keeping the upper body as still as you can. Super. And through again. Lovely, well done. 2 left. Excellent. Last one. Draw it through, take it down, out to the side. Little march through those feet. Fantastic, good. And we always keep evenness through our bodies, so we need to do on the other side. So bring your feet to a nice little halt. Hand onto the chair if you need to for a bit of balance. Bring the foot back to start with so you're on your toes. And draw that knee through. Good, and take it back. Keeping that upper body as still as you can. So we're thinking about leg strength in that standing leg. And also building muscle in the butt to be able to go up those stairs and walk up those hills. Good, last one, there. And bring it down, out to the side. Fantastic. Little bit of a march. Lovely. Take that little march back behind your chair. Good. Excellent. Nice width in your feet. We're going into cool down now, so we're nearly there, Roger. Take a step back on that right leg. Press the weight through that back heel and a little lean forward into this chair. Good. So when we start to stretch, we don't want any wobble. We only want the body to think about, the brain to think about that muscle that we're trying to stretch. Good. Right through that calf muscle, bottom part of the leg, and step yourself in, and step back on the other leg. Drive the weight through that back heel, and a little lean forward if you can't quite feel it through that calf muscle. Bottom part of your leg. Excellent. And bring yourself in, and a little march through those feet. Lovely. Bring your feet to a nice little halt, and then gently bring yourself round to the front part of the chair. And we're going to sit down now, Roger, a little bit of a break. Good. And you're going to sit down. When we do the sitting into the chair, rather than doing it fast like we did with the squatting one, we're going to lower ourselves back down, nice and steady, using our balance and support into that chair as slowly as you can. Don't let yourself plonk into the chair. Fantastic. Good. Hands onto the side of the chair again. Nice big hip walk. So we've still got to use these tummy muscles a little bit before we finish. Good. Just one big roll through these shoulders, rolling them backwards. Good. And then this time, take the arms round in a big circle. Catch hold of the little rungs of the chair if you want to. Head looking forward. Squeeze them shoulder blades and push that chest out forward. Fantastic. Lovely. And then gently release those arms. Give them a little shake. Good. And then sitting up nice and tall, have your hands wherever they feel comfortable, and just drop your right ear to your right shoulder. And come up to centre. And left ear to left shoulder. Try and keep that head looking forward. And come back up to centre. Lovely. This time, dangle the arms down by the side again, and we're going to do that reach down to the side, keeping your head and shoulders looking forward. And come back up to centre and down to the other side. Lovely. Don't let them shoulders twist. Excellent. And come back up to centre. Lovely. Hands onto your thighs. Take one leg out as straight as you can with this leg. If it's a little bit bent, it could be that you need to wiggle yourself a bit further forward on this chair. Just don't pop off the end. Hands onto the bent leg. Good. Now keep looking forward, head and chest looking forward. Just tip from that waist. Good. And gently bring yourself forward. A nice stretch through this big muscle at the back of the leg at the top, the hamstring muscle. Really important on this muscle to keep it nice and flexible, especially for you footballing guys. But also, as we get older, we need to still be able to reach our feet, and keeping this muscle nice and flexible will enable us to reach our feet, put our shoes and socks on for longer. Super. Bring that leg back up and take out the other one, getting the leg as straight as you can. Toes up, bring your toes up towards the ceiling, hands on the bent leg, and keep looking forward and tip from that hip. Excellent. Lovely. Can you feel that, Roger?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Ah, well done. James, do you do lots of stretching?
Yeah.
Fantastic, good, lovely, good. So arms out to the side, big, big stretch out to the side, lovely. And then are you ready? Bring your hands together at speed and give yourselves a big clap. Well done. Super, fantastic, good.
Rule one is stay alive as long as possible because you never know what's round the corner. There are 4 of us who go always together. We make sure we arrive early because there's a cafe opposite the ground. We always go in there and have a cup of tea and a bacon roll before play starts. You've got to build up your energy before play, so. Our group is typically 60s to 70s. We've even got some players who are in their 80s. And there's something wrong with just about all of us. So I've got a cancer called Hodgkin lymphoma. I was diagnosed about 2.5 years ago now, and I've been receiving treatments of various kinds ever since.
Two more, you got two more.
We play 3-touch, which gets more people involved. Because obviously the more competent players would otherwise be able to get the ball and dribble it from one end of the pitch to the other and score a goal. That's not much fun for the people who aren't so competent or so active. I hadn't kicked a football since I was 13, so I was, as a number of them told me, rubbish when I first started again, but I've got a bit better. The physical side of it, keeping fit, is, I think, just vitally important, because the fitter you are, the more able you are to do something about the illness. But the emotional support is just as important. I'd say to anybody who's my age, first of all, whether they're ill or not, keep as fit as you can possibly be. The treatment that I am getting was not available 2.5 years ago, and it's only the fact that it's available now that means that I'm alive now, frankly. The fact is you can live with cancer, and I think that's the most important lesson. Carry on living.